Let's get brave. Let's get bold. I'm talking about Ragman's appearance with Batman in Brave and the Bold, number 196. Here we go. Hey everyone, my name is Bernie Gonzalez and I am a comic book writer and artist. And if you ask a comic book creator if they would like to work on a Marvel or DC character, I think it'd be few and far between that don't have a Batman story or a Wolverine story that they would like to tell, that there's another character that was created for DC or Marvel that you'd like to play with somebody else's toys. And in a few videos I've gone over who that would be for me, and that would be Ragman. Kind of this very underrated, very little known character from DC that was created by Bob Kanigher and artist Joe Kubert. First appearance was Ragman number 1 in 1976, but just a character that, as you can see as I flip through some here, just on the design, just really spoke to me at a time when Spawn was on the shelf, Ghost Rider was out there, Midnight Suns. There was just something really cool and interesting about this, especially compared to DC, where things seemed to be a little bit more colorful. You had Jack Kirby's The Fourth World and, just characters that seemed to be more cosmic. This was the opposite. This felt like a character that lived in that 1970s New York, actually operated in the slums of Gotham. So I always kind of had this sense that where Batman was working with the Justice League or the Outsiders and traveling the globe or the universe, trying to right wrongs. You had Ragman literally on the other side of the tracks, on the other side of the city, just fighting off mobsters and just trying to bring in some justice to the neighborhoods around him. And that always, I thought, was very interesting because it didn't feel grandiose, didn't feel earth-shattering. It just felt like a hero that was trying to save one block at a time. And then on top of that, really amazing character design. So in previous videos, I went over Joe Kubert and his contribution. He did a short story in this issue specifically here, 5-page story without any dialogue or captions. That's just really well done. And obviously he contributed to the covers. But speaking of Batman, I wanted to go over one of those few times where, at least at the time it was released, Ragman carried over into other characters. So this is Brave and the Bold, number 196. And again, speaking of Batman, there's Batman in Ragman's arms, seemingly unconscious, being saved by Ragman. And at a time when there weren't many Ragman things out there. There was those 5 issues that I just kind of scrolled through, and later on you would see other versions, other stories that they would tell of Ragman, but this was it. There wasn't a lot out there for me, and I was looking through back issues to try to find out more about this really cool looking character. And I mean, come on, look at that. That's just amazing. This one is by Jim Aparo, who, thinking again, Batman and the Outsiders, did a lot of artwork in the Batman, in the DC world. Great artist, and going from Joe Kubert to Aparo, not a big drop off there. But I wanted to showcase this issue because you don't really see Ragman play with others a lot. Again, he's kind of contained to Gotham, to even his section of Gotham, but this is why I love that character. Again, at a time when Spawn was out there, Uncanny X-Men, a Ghost Rider, that just spoke to me. The designs, that long kind of hood, just really well done. I loved it. The face, it looked ominous, it looked scary, it looked mysterious. And in this issue, now he crosses paths with this figure that's flying in through the air, lands on the ground. He's able to brace his fall, and we find out that it's Batman. And at the time, this was released when I don't know if I was even born at this time. The first issue of Ragman came out in 1976, and this is 1983. So I was 5 years old. So I was certainly not buying comics at the time, and definitely only connection to Batman was probably Batman Underoos. So I did not know who Ragman was. But that being said, once I discovered Ragman, I wanted to find out more, and then to find out later that these Brave and the Bold books teamed up characters that you would never really see together. So whereas you might see Batman obviously in Justice League, you're never going to see Ragman in Justice League. So this is the closest thing that I was going to get to finding more about this character that I really enjoyed. So got Batman landed there. Ragman's able to save him from these mobsters that have these Molotov cocktails. And again, just going back to why I fell in love with this character. Loved that. And that there were these almost supernatural elements about him in previous issues. You got the sense that he disappeared. He kind of disappears into the air. So it always made me think that this is more than just a like another caped vigilante. There's something else going on with Ragman, and his origins are very much tied up to Jewish mythology and the Golem myth, the sort of creature of clay, mindless creature that serves a master and is going out for revenge. Except in this case, we find out eventually that Ragman's suit is made of rags that need to absorb souls. And similar to the way Venom works with Eddie Brock, sometimes the suit has to be fed. And he feeds it by fighting criminals, and sometimes the souls get sucked in. And if that criminal happens to be a getaway driver, then he absorbs the skills, and now he knows how to be a good driver. If the person's a safe cracker, he absorbs the soul. Now he can pick locks and crack safes. So I always thought that was really interesting, because you could put him around characters like Batman, and Batman, while obviously dealing with cosmic threats, there's just something interesting that I always thought Ragman was very underrated considering his power set. Anyway, all right, getting back to the story here, Ragman is able to catch the Molotov cocktail in the air, throw it out, and then hits it right at the driver. Maybe at some point he sucked the soul of some pitcher, who knows, a baseball pitcher, but he hit a strike, car goes, crashes, boom. But look at that. I mean, come on. That is just beautiful artwork and line work there by Jim Aparo. Love the shadows on that. And then the great thing about Ragman is that you can bring in the pupils, or you could go Batman and just keep it with just the white pupils, and it works. You can get the Spider-Man look where you can be expressive in the eyes, or bring in the pupils and really do that sort of, it's a different look than Batman. It's a different look than a lot of heroes. He doesn't look like a hero. Between the rags, between everything else, he looks like he could be a villain. That's what made him interesting to me. So now you've got Opal, who is a love interest that's introduced in the previous Ragman issues, who shows up. And again, this is where you can get some of the comedy elements in here because of the eyes. She's trying to get a thank you kiss for picking them up and, putting Batman in the back seat, which is kind of ridiculous. But in one page, we can get a bit about Rory Regan, the guy who wears the Ragman suit. He's a Vietnam vet, comes back home, finds, that he's got some trauma, some PTSD, or probably at the time what they would have known as shell shock. So he's dealing with that. He comes back to help his dad run the Rags and Tatters, kind of a junkyard, slash like pawn shop. But then these mobsters come in to the junkyard, and they're looking for what's supposed to be a mattress full of money. Turns out it is. But they shoot up these electric wires. The dad and his friends get caught up in the wires. Rory tries to save them, grabs his dad's hand. Everyone gets electrocuted, except instead of dying, Rory survives. His dad leaves him this suit that's supposed to be for Halloween, although I also see that it says Happy Birthday. It's the thing about Ragman. There's been a lot of retrofitting for this character. Not a DC historian, but I know in the pre-Crisis version, he had like above average strength and fighting ability and acrobatics. I think it's not until after Crisis that they really start bringing in other origins, the Jewish mythology, and really kind of lean into that part of his character. So this is just kind of like a hodgepodge of, this guy looks cool. How do we make him a hero? That's fine. Let's do that. And then in this issue, let's put him next to a hero people will definitely know, and that's Batman. So we get that very, at least to me, very specific Jim Aparo type thing where he would bring in the black underneath the eyes. That was just something that I never knew who did that, but when you see artists that just bring in their signature, Norm Brayfogle, Neil Adams, Kelly Jones, in this case, that was something that Aparo and, to me, Greyfogle, they seemed to do that, and it was always just an interesting take because they also drew Batman more athletic. He wasn't bulky, something that Neil Adams did successfully in kind of bringing that Olympic type physique to Batman. I love that, and Jim Aparo was also one of those artists like John Buscema, a John Byrne, that didn't draw his characters too stocky or too bulky. The heroic physique looked like they were 9 heads tall. They were a little taller than the average person, so it gave you the sense that they were, almost godlike, that they were more heroic, and these artists were able to do that really well. And in cases like this, where Ragman definitely fits that mold. So back to the story. You've got Batman who's incapacitated, and he's kind of feeling out who this Ragman guy is. Batman can't do his mission, so he ends up giving Ragman, they trade suits, and Ragman goes out as Batman and is able to find these mobsters and try to get down to what they're doing. Turns out that they're part of this sort of militia in the city that's trying to do something, and obviously they've got some explosives, and Ragman as Batman comes back to Ragman, who is really Batman, and is able to say, all right, well, I tried to do my part, but I'm kind of down for the count now. So I was supposed to meet Bet, who's the love interest here for Ragman. Batman realizes, you know what? Now they switch again. This is the fun of Batman Brave and the Bold. They were having these fun stories. It's kind of stories that you can have in soap operas and in superhero comic books. So now Batman is dressed as Ragman, so he's able to show up. Kind of reminds me a bit of that World's Finest in the animated series, where you had Superman wearing the Batman's cape and cowl, and just all the supervillains now suddenly thought that Batman might actually be powerful, that he might have powers that they never thought he had, because now Superman as Batman is moving faster, avoiding bullets, and then Robin is telling him, hey, like, Batman doesn't do that. He doesn't have those powers, but just enough to make someone like the Joker or Two-Face second guess. And in this case, you've got Ragman, who's really Batman underneath, and he's fighting off these mobsters. He's saving the girl, so that way nothing happens. They trade back suits, so that way now everyone is where they're supposed to be. Batman is not at 100%, but he seems to be in a better place because, he's eating and drinking something. And now he's thrown off his coffee because, hey, we got to stop crime. We got to stop these guys. We're in my city. Ragman says, hey, my city too, my end of the city. But 2 characters of the night, two characters in shadows. Love that. I know they brought him into the CW universe in Arrow. I was one of those viewers of Arrow. I loved the first few seasons, and then after a while, it just got, I don't know, they lost me. And then I did watch a few shows where they brought in Ragman. I just thought he was completely misused. He feels more like he would work best as a horror character. And if you saw the CW version of Swamp Thing that at least was only released for a season that I saw, that felt like a Ragman felt like a character that could live in that world, that has horror elements, where you could bring in a little bit of that Southern New Orleans voodoo supernatural type elements, and Ragman could kind of fit in there. And if you brought on top of that the Jewish mythology that's now become very synonymous with Ragman as a character, that would be kind of interesting. Doesn't really necessarily work, I think, in a just regular superhero comic book. But anyway, so you find out that these people who have been hypnotized or something's going on with them, they've been brainwashed. She takes the shots for them, allowing Ragman and Batman to stop them, and then Batman in a heroic pose, brings the girl there. And meanwhile, Ragman, damn you, Batman, are you too proud to pray for her after she saved our skins? Batman looking out, maybe not a fan of prayer, but does what he does best, is able to give her mouth to mouth and bring her back, while Ragman is pleading with Batman to do something. In the end, they part ways. Ragman, you taught me tonight there were many, many ways to pray. So again, there's kind of like these interesting religious elements that are not as, you know, in the foreground, like in Daredevil. Characters like Daredevil very much have religion as a part of their origin, as a part of, you know, who they are underneath the costume. Ragman doesn't really have that, at least in this sort of like pre-crisis, DC crisis world. And again, I'm not a DC historian. I know they've done a lot more things with Ragman afterwards, but again, at a time when this is it. This is all I've got. I'm looking through back issue bins, and this is all I find for Ragman. And then I stumble onto this. You know I was going to pick it up. It's Jim Aparo. This is great. I just went from Joe Kubert and Nestor Redondo Studios for this. So I'm loving this, but just wanted to share that because, again, as a creator, sometimes when people ask, hey, wouldn't you want to do a Batman story? I'd reply with, actually, I'd like to do a Ragman story. And 99% of the time, the reply to that is, who the heck is Ragman? So it gives you a little bit of sense of why I like this character, probably what I would do with it, but give a nod to the artists like Aparo and Kubert who've been able to take this character and do something with him, the little bit that there is out there. So thanks for watching the video.